All thanks and praises are due to Almighty Allah, who in His infinite mercy has made it possible for us to join the second International Research Conference on Multidisciplinary in Social Sciences and Technology, which is taking place currently today, the 11th and 12th July 2020 in Malaysia. I am Ibrahim Dahiru Idriss from Department of Primary Education, Federal College of Education, Potiskum, Yobe State, Nigeria, hereby to present a joint paper with the title Types and Effects of Domestic Violence on Adolescents in Borno State, Nigeria, Implications for Counseling. This paper has the following outlines. The first one is the introduction, statement of problem, objectives of the study, methodology, research questions, result and discussion, conclusion, and references. To start with the introductory part of this paper, the World Health Organization defined violence as the intentional use of physical force or power, threatening or actual against oneself and another person, or against group or community, that earlier result in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. The United Nations, in its Article number 1 of the Declaration of the General Assembly, reported violence against women to include any act of gender violence that result in or likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm or suffering to women, including threat of such acts, coercion or arbitration, deprivation of liberty occurring in private or public life. Researcher Liman consider ethnic violence to imply physical, psychological, and moral violence inflicted on individual group or community as whole, specifically the identified group of which that individual is member. So the physical violence has highest percentage of occurrences in Nigeria with 85%, followed by psychological violence with 50%, gender-based violence accounted for 5%, sexual violence 4%, and health violence ranked the least with 1%. Researcher Umar identified reactionary, conversative, and voluntary forms of violence as the topmost in Nigeria. In this study, violence is defined as the act of threat or using any physical objects, sexual, psychologically, verbal, or emotional wall-off to humiliate, intimidate, demean, or injure an individual group in school settings, home, or at community society level. UNICEF identified forms of violence to include physical, psychological, sexual, gender-based, and health-based violence. Researchers expressed that the major cause of family violence in a context include low income, growing up in violent family, emergence of insignificant social networks, unemployment, substance by the breadwinner, sexual difficulties, lack of openness between couples, unable to settle school fees, water and electric power bill and exposure to violence themes, especially among siblings, because the violent characters are perceived as heroes and role model. This research has the following statement of problem. Observation has shown that most of the students in recent years, especially at the senior secondary school levels, display a sudden and unprecedented change in their behavior with associated academic performance. The unparalleled behavior cut across all gender and the aftermath most often than not result in isolation, depression, mistrust, non-interest in school activities, and subsequent withdrawal from school. Therefore, the main thrust of this study is to identify the types and effects of domestic violence on adolescents and to determine if there exists in any relationship between domestic violence and adolescent academic performance by gender in Borno State, Nigeria. Also, the study has the following objectives. The study has the set was has or the study was to set to achieve. The study was to achieve the following objectives. Number one, to identify of domestic violence on adolescents in Borno State, Nigeria, to identify effects of domestic violence on adolescents in Borno State, Nigeria, to identify effects of domestic violence on adolescents by gender in Borno State, and finally, to determine the relationship between domestic violence to adolescents academic performance by gender in Borno State, Nigeria. The study was an exploration of observed phenomenon in which representatives of the population were used. Hence, this descriptive survey research design was adopted for the study. These are the results, these are the outcomes based on the key research questions. The results are being presented based on the questions. As I said, these are the types of domestic violence and on adolescents in Borno State, while these are the mean and rank of the effect of domestic violence on adolescents in Borno State, Nigeria. While this is also mean and rank of effect of domestic violence on adolescents based on gender in Borno State, these are the effects. And the discussion on these, the findings of the research revealed that the study revealed 20 types and also 11 effects of domestic violence on adolescents in Borno State and Nigeria. Research question number one, what are the types of domestic violence on adolescents in Borno State, Nigeria? Findings on these reveal that the physical, sexual, and psychological violence that adolescents are exposed to in Borno State, Nigeria, the topmost type of domestic violence include slapping, cooking, hitting by object, forceful pushing, causing the ingestion of substance, the use of disparaging weapon, twisting of body fat, pouring hot water on the body fats, forced exposure and sexual intimacy, vaginal penetration, threats of killing, and material denials. While the second research question, what are the effects of domestic violence on adolescents in Borno State, Nigeria? On the research question two, these findings indicate downheartedness, low self-esteem, poor academic performance, nervousness, social decision, school dropout, trauma, and melancholy as the major effect of domestic violence on adolescents in this study area. The last effect of domestic violence on adolescents in Borno State, Nigeria include substance abuse, resentment, feelings of incompetence, and extreme mistrust. What are the effects of domestic violence on adolescents by gender in Borno State? This comes to the third research question. Findings of the study on research question number 3 reveal that both male and females are exposed to virtually same degree of domestic violence, and the effects are detrimental physically, sexually, and psychologically. The major effects identified the male gender are downheartedness, low self-esteem, poor academic performance, nervousness, social desertion, school dropout, and melancholy, while the female counterpart identified low esteem, substance abuse, school dropout, downheartedness, poor academic performance, trauma, and melancholy in that order as the major effect of exposure to domestic violence. In conclusion, based on the findings of the study, it could be or it can become concluded that adolescents are subjected to various forms of physical, sexual, and psychological domestic violence in Borno State, Nigeria, and the effect cut across gender with attendant internal and external consequences on the victims. It is alarming as confirmed by the tested null hypothesis that domestic violence has negative relationship on the academic performance of adolescents in Borno State, Nigeria, which requires counseling intervention. Then recommendations. Based on the findings, the following recommendations were made. Borno State government should impose an existing law by law, introduce a stringent edict to legislate on jail terms with no option of fine on any person that violates human rights of instilling school, domestic, or any form of violence on adolescents. Secondly, Borno State government should, in collaboration with the Ministries of Education, Health, Youth, and Sport, local education authority, social workers, and counselors, organize sensitization workshops, talk shops, seminars, and conferences, regular intervals for parent guidance, head teachers, and other stakeholders on the negativities of all forms of violence and on adolescents. Borno State government should construct counseling clinics and employ professional counselors to counsel parent guidance, faith-based traditional and community leaders on effect of domestic violence every fortnight, and as well involve the media in organizing phone and calls and media chats using both electronic and print media to intensify enlightenment campaign against domestic violence. Borno State government, in collaboration with Ministry of Education curriculum developers, and also implementers, should consider fashioning school curriculum to suit socio-cultural and faith-based aspirations, individual counseling to transform parents' guidance, ambivalent attitude towards adolescent domestic violence. Finally, counselors should, with the authority of the school principals, proprietors, be given time during parent teachers association, PTA meetings, year group to assembly, and general school assemblies to address issues on domestic and social school domestic violence and adoptive behaviors. This is what we have for this paper, and thank you for the listening. We are hoping to meet again in the subsequent conference. Thank you so much, and God bless all of us.